Say, look, hey, free Masana for your honor. Left on box and them chains. Rick was my dog, man. Why that bullet had got lodged in his brain? My mind is insane. A memory card is locked in the game. These optical frames spot ops and leave a block full of pain. Did the impossible, cross the tightrope while dodging the rain. I put extensions in my Glock, no, I am not finna aim. Swear I got robbed and joined the army, so my spot could remain. One lost his life in North Carolina, hope he not as I sang. Drinking sorrow away on my alky still for the soldiers we lost on the battlefield. Why am I hurting myself as I bury I'm belching out death when I'd rather heal? And most of these rappers ain't that for real. They mentioning that shit, they cap for me. Talking fly when we push that in vacuum seal. Some of my homies not pushing up that deal. Now Ninja put music to dream hours. We been up grinding up teen hours. They ain't believing that team power, then we had to run up 14,000. I thank you all for supporting us. This right here for the voice of the warrior. Victory is a beautiful woman. We went through the rain while in love with Victoria.
Whether they gonna find a thing, whether wood and a golden frame, I still love, I still love, I still love through the rain. Whether they gonna find a thing, whether wood and a golden frame, I still love, I still love, I still love through the rain.
Hard to hop off of the plane, just to get back in the trenches. My sister, my brother was slain, and I haven't seen any mentions from social media and networks. So irritated that my head hurts, and when I do, it's only excerpts. Small commentary from the experts. No appreciation for the lives lost. I posted up with the iron cross when the smoke clears from fine off. All I think about is my fault, man. Should've been there to protect you. The bullets that came and they wrecked you. Now it's my duty to go and collect you. Wrapping the casket, sending you home. Not full of madness, knowing you gone. How could this happen? Tell me I'm wrong. Dip in the sadness, leave me alone. Doctor got me medicated, wanna get me regulated. Helping me recover with the pain. Even though we celebrated everything you dedicated, now I gotta make it through the rain.
Whether they gonna find a thing, whether wood and a golden frame, I still love, I still love, I still love through the rain. Whether they gonna find a thing, whether wood and a golden frame, I still love, I still love, I still love through the rain.
Army specialist Aaron David Robinson is accused of killing Guillen, and his girlfriend Cicely Aguilar is accused of helping him get rid of the body. And tonight, we have Aguilar's confession about exactly what happened the night Guillen disappeared.
Well, today marks 2 years since an Air Force veteran was shot and killed by a DeKalb County police officer. 27-year-old Anthony Hill, whose family says he suffered from PTSD, was naked and unarmed when he was shot by Officer Robert Olson during an encounter.
Olson was indicted by a grand jury and faces felony murder along with other charges. And now we've learned the DA has appointed a new prosecution team in that case.
I'll circle back if there's more I can share with you. I'll circle back with you if there's more to convey. I'll have to just circle back with you. We can circle back with him. I'm happy to circle back with you. I can circle back. I'll have to.
It's pretty obvious we all know you're pretending. You have no actual facts for the lies that you're defending. Conservatives not the only ones who find it condescending. The real reason you circle back is cause you know it's never ending. Round and round and round you go, dancing like a puppet show. Just a simple yes or no. Thousands watching wanna know the truth. I guess there's too much to ask. Like why Biden was at the Lincoln Memorial without a mask, huh? Can't believe what I'm seeing now. Got everyone thinking now. Just how much you get paid. Only just to hear you say.
We'll circle back with you.
Circle back.
I'll have to just circle back with you.
Circle back.
I'm happy to circle back.
Circle back. Only just to hear you say. In the beginning, we tried giving you a chance, but
Welcome to Plausible Foolishness. We are the two kings of the Rube Empire. My name is Matt. I'm the Philosopher King, also known as the Mad Scientist. And I've got a perspective on things.
Let me tell you about it, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the strong one. I'm the Iron King, and I am grateful to sit on the throne next to this guy. And I have a perspective on things. And no, your eyes do not deceive you. There is another... I didn't think there was going to be a person more beautiful than you, Mad Scientist, Mad Max, but we have Kangmin Lee in the house today. Oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest show we have ever done before.
I agree.
I'm jacked up, bro.
Yeah, let's go.
Before we get to Kangmin, we got to give the people what they know, what they want. We are all over. We're everywhere on social media. We're on where are we at? Facebook for the old people. We got Instagram. What else we got? Where are we at?
You've got a clapper.
Yeah, that clapper thing. They're kind of making me mad though right now, bro. Why won't they let me talk about Rona? I don't understand this.
I don't know.
Why won't they let me call out the fake president that's going on right now? Why won't they let me talk about the election? I don't understand.
That's not an election, it's a selection.
It's okay. Green screen today. Did you see the green screen video? Did you see that one today?
Yes.
That was hilarious, by the way. Very obvious. But anyways, make sure you check us out everywhere. And we have the best guest we have ever had up until this point. Maybe even better than Topher Town Music. And listen, and I'm not saying that to bait you back on the show, Topher, but that's the reality of the situation. This might be the greatest that we've ever had. So, Matt, you want to give the introduction to our special guest today on Plausible Foolishness?
Yes, you can find him on Instagram. You can find him on Twitter. Complaining, as he says. He also has a show on YouTube, and he's known as the Korean Christian Conservative. He's a Prager Force member. It's Kangmin Lee. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you. You guys flatter me too much, man. Better than Topher? I don't know about that,
listen,
but
the pressure's on. So it's kind of it got a dual effect, right? You got to bring the noise for the show, and then we're baiting Topher to come on. And maybe one day we'll just collab and bring both of you on at the same time. It might get crazy. I don't know, but that's where we're going with it today, man. Hey, give our viewers
that'd be fun.
Give our viewing audience a little bit about you, who you are, where you're from, and what you're about, man.
All right, hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much, Ray and Matt, for having me on. I'm Kangmin. I'm a 24-year-old, recently become conservative Christian.
All right.
Right now I'm out in Minneapolis, but I'll move to Georgia in a few months. But yeah, what I do, I just complain on Twitter. I make content for Instagram and TikTok, and do more like long-form videos on YouTube. And when I had my red pill moment, that's kind of like when I realized, especially during the BLM riots this past year, I realized I had to speak out because there are literally barely any Koreans speaking out against this nonsense, this woke cult. So I felt compelled to do it, and now I'm here. So
Nice.
I guess people kind of liked it.
Tell us about your red pill moment. What was it that changed things for you, specifically?
Yeah, so it was actually Trump. So I hated Trump throughout college. I went to college in LA, and so I was out in LA, and so then I was in LA, and everyone around me hated Trump. Everyone around me hated Republicans. Everyone around me hated conservatives. And I was like, yeah, because there's no other person in the whole entire United States who would be a conservative or a Republican unless you're white, cisgender, male, bigoted, gun-toting dude out in the middle of the boonies of Wisconsin or something. You know, I just had this image of people, which is not a bad thing. I've been to the boonies of Wisconsin. People there are the kindest people you'll ever meet. Anyways, so I had this idea about them, and because this is what the narrative was the mainstream media narrative was feeding me, and everyone around me was feeding me this propaganda. So I believed it. And throughout college, I hated Trump, and I hated conservatives, hated Republicans. I remember this one time, one of my close friends came up to me, and he started talking to me about how he's a Republican. And I was like, what? Like, back in my mind, I was listening to him because he was having a hard time. But I was like, dude, what is this bigoted? Why are you a Republican? You're a terrible person. You know, that's what I thought. Yep. And then one day, fall of 2019, I was scrolling through my newsfeed, and I believe it was a Now This video. So, you know, Now This is super left, and they're like, it's just anti-Trump. They posted a clip about him talking about immigrants, and I was like, oh, typical. He's a xenophobic dude who hates Mexicans. I look into comments, and there's this one guy who posts a comment that says, hey, I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but here's the full clip of what he said, you watch for yourself and decide whether or not he actually said that all Mexicans are rapists, drug dealers, criminals, right? I was like, oh, that's interesting. I clicked it. It was only like 2 minutes long. I watched it. My mind was blown because even with my bias against Trump, it would be so incredibly intellectually dishonest for me to come out watching that clip and say he called Mexicans that. No, he called people crossing the border. So there's tons of people who aren't Mexican crossing the border illegally and bringing in crime, bringing in drugs, bringing in trafficking children, or raping women at the border. Like, this is actually going on, because I looked it up and I was like, wait, is this actually going on? And it was actually going on. And as someone who's very, very much against rape, against human trafficking, I think it's very despicable, and it's one of the most vile things ever, because it's slavery and it's absolutely disgusting and detestable. I was like, this is a problem. I was like, wait, maybe I've been lied to. And so I started to watch like Ben Shapiro. So Ben Shapiro came onto campus a year before, and I was protesting with them. I was like, yes, like, you guys protest against racism. And I started to watch Ben Shapiro. I was like, what? Wait, this guy makes sense. And I started to I binge watched Steven Crowder's Change My Mind segments. I started to binge watch PragerU videos, and I started slowly but surely realize, like, because I've been a Christian my whole life, and I was like, wait, my Christian values align with conservatism. No wonder I was so weirded out by the whole crazy transgender gender fluidity. Now, that's one thing I never liked. That's one thing I absolutely never liked, because I thought, okay, maybe, homosexuality, there's room in the Bible for other interpretations. But I was like, dude, if you're a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you're a woman. Like, you can't just change that, right? And so I started to slowly realize, and like, wow, as a Christian, conservatism stems from Judeo-Christian values. This is why it aligns so closely. And then as I realized that, I was like, shoot, I can't be open about this because I'm going to get canceled. But then when the BLM riots happened, I was like, I got to say something. I got to say something because everyone's being lied to and everyone's lying about this. I was open about it, and then, boop, canceled immediately.
Where'd you go to school in L.A.?
I went to USC, fight on.
USC? Oh, man. So that's why you got quiet when I said UCLA, huh? You got real quiet when I said that. It's all good. I have no hatred for USC, you know what I mean? I'm an A-clap guy, but it is what it is, UCLA. But
yeah.
Very cool. So tell me, like...
LA.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. I get... all my friends from back in California that are big USC fans and stuff, like every year, just trash talk every single year. So, but it's fun, man. I love it. So, tell me a little bit. Obviously, what stood out to you with the Black Lives Matter movement that just kind of grinded your gears? I hate to steal the Family Guy reference, you know what I mean? But if you're a professional complainer, but like ultimately, like suffer-fest. But what kind of stood out to you with the Black Lives Matter? I mean, what kind of blew your mind in that situation?
So I wasn't ever like super far left. I wasn't super collectivist. I was actually I was very big on the idea of treating people as individuals, not as collectives. Yeah. I think even when you look at the greatest stories and the most moving stories, it's stories of people getting over their differences and treating each other and viewing each other as individuals, right? And I remember during the BLM riots, there's a Facebook reminder of like, hey, this is a post that got a lot of traction 4 years ago. And I was like, what is this? I posted a status when in 2016 BLM was also huge. And I saw a lot of anti-cop, kill all cops rhetoric on my newsfeed in 2016. And I was very pro BLM back then. But then I pushed back against the anti-cop narrative that happened during that time. Because it's like, I have encountered a lot of cops in my lifetime, and overwhelmingly, a lot of them are very good experiences. They're very kind. They just want to help keep you safe, right? And so I actually had that kind of like stirring in myself in 2016 when BLM was really big, because of course it's an election year. But in 2020, I still believed throughout college the narrative that police were largely targeting black people. I just didn't believe that every cop was bad. And then come 2019, I started to listen to Candace Owens. I started to listen to other black conservatives. And I was like, wow, like, this police brutality narrative that they're targeting black people and have an open season on just people who are darker skin color than them, it's just it's a farce. And I came into the BLM riots knowing that. So then I was quiet because I was like, man, I don't want to get canceled, because I'm a people pleaser. People don't realize this about me. People think that I'm a contrarian by heart. I don't like stirring up controversy. I hate it because I like when people like me. But then I had to speak out because they were saying...
He's
Yeah.
the contrarian. He likes the controversy.
I like the battle, man. I like pissing people off. Unfortunately, I think that's the Paul in me. You know what I mean? If we're gonna go biblical
Yeah.
references, I just like making people
Yeah,
mad.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, there's a time and place for everything, you know.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah, but you know, when I saw everyone being taken up like by storm because of this, because when I first saw the George Floyd footage, I was also angered because like there's no reason why any cop should have their knee on someone's back for 8 minutes. But then automatically everyone made it a race thing, and I was like, whoa! Like all the Christian friends that I knew, all the pastors I respected, we must stand in solidarity with BLM, racism, systemic racism, institutional racism, structural racism. All this needs to end. We need to stop being silent right now. I'm like, whoa, like, whoa, wait, take a step back. Like, it's not everything is race related, and it was just I'll be just shoved in my face every single day, and I was like, man, all my closest friends, all those pastors that I respected, they're all being deceived. And so I think that was the biggest thing that got me like really motivated and turned off was this lie that it was race. First of all, we didn't even know if it was racially motivated. And so they made it racially motivated. So I was very turned off by that because I already knew that the BLM narrative was false. But second, it was infecting the minds and hearts of Christians. And I was like, this is a lie. Guys, please wake up. This is a lie. And that's like the biggest thing that got me passionate about speaking out because I'm huge and very passionate about church unity. And I'm what this BLM narrative and this whole movement was fostering within the church was disunity, right? Yep. I saw so much disunity, so much chaos, so much uncertainty and anxiety and fear. And it was straight up a lie. The BLM movement is predicated on a lie. And this was infecting the church. And so I was like, we cannot be a church if we cannot even stand for truth. So I spoke out, and especially because BLM is completely antithetical to everything the Bible stands for. I was like, hey guys, like, let's not. Here are some facts. And they're like, whoop, canceled. So that's kind of like what turned me off and what got me very, like, I guess, started in speaking out against the woke narratives.
Yeah, how dare you?
How dare you speak How dare you do that, man? Yeah, so here's the LA connection. I went to Shepherd of the Hills Church when I was living in LA. That was my church, Shepherd of the Hills. And, for me, I had a hard time. The whole BLM thing, I mean, was really predicated on a lie, right? It was the whole, was it Mike Jones? What was the kid's name? Michael Brown. Michael Brown. And
Mike Brown.
Stop, Don't Shoot.
Yeah, Stop, Don't Shoot, which was a lie. It never happened. And all the information came out about it, and it was clearly an idiot kid who just robbed a store and didn't want to listen to a cop, and then charged a cop and went for a cop's gun. And for me, as a black guy, like, at the end of the day, like, I heard all the stories, I was told all the stories that, cops are out to kill you, blah, blah, blah. But to your point, I had very similar interactions in the sense that if I was respectful, guess what? They were respectful back. You know what I mean? The times I was a kind of a snippy a-hole, they were a snippy a-hole back to me. You know what I mean? Trust me, there were times that happened too. But like the reality didn't match what was going on. And for me, especially, I mean, we're all followers of Christ on the show as well. I struggled when Matt Chandler went woke. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this guy was one of the best preachers I have ever heard on the pulpit deliver the messages. And for him to go super woke, I'm just like, holy crap, it's like him and J.D. Greer and a few of the guys with the Southern Baptist Convention. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, what's happening to the church? And that
Southern Baptist Convention itself, adopted critical race theory as a tool for putting out the gospel, for evangelism.
Yeah.
No, it's a competing worldview.
And to your point, super, I mean, it's amazing when a cause is calling for unity as it's destroying unity simultaneously. And nobody really saw that narrative. It's like, when did the church become black church, white church, Korean church, Japanese church, whatever? And we're worried about oppression levels, because at the end of the day, Romans is pretty darn clear. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right? Revelation's super clear that all nations, all tongues are going to be saying Jesus is Lord at the end of this, right? So for me, like, it was just incredibly, very disheartening, like you described, to see guys that I really respected, that I'm like, wow, if you're that easily deceived, your leadership in the church, man, and you're falling for this, it's crazy to me, man. So I completely get where you're coming from. But
I agree, and that's the thing, right? It's What? So I was in. I don't know if you guys heard of YWAM. I'm sure you guys have.
Oh yeah.
And so I was doing. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so I was actually doing a DTS in Kona right before this, and right before COVID hit. And because of COVID, I got sent home. I couldn't go on outreach, unfortunately. But one of the most beautiful things that I loved about YWAM Kona was that everyone, the people on the campus base, came from all over the world.
Yeah.
Like crazy. I've never met a Norwegian in my life. Now I have like 30 Norwegian friends. It's like, it's crazy. Like people from Europe, Africa. I met people from Brazil, people from like the most random parts of the world I never would have thought, right? And when I was in that worship hall and we were worshiping together, I got a glimpse of revelation, like you talked about. Every tribe, every tongue will declare that Jesus is Lord. I was like, wow, this is the church. This is so amazing. I don't care what you look like. I mean, what you come from is it's your cultural background, your heritage. Of course, it's significant, but that all pales in comparison to the unity that we have in Christ. Our first and foremost thing that we should be focusing on is the banner of Christ under which we live and abide in. And the thing is about critical race theory is that is not it. That's not what you think about. You always think about the hegemonic power structure that's cultivated through systems of oppression by people in power versus people who aren't in power. So this of course according to critical race theory, it's always white people. So white people are bad. They're beyond saving, and they can't be saved unless they absolve themselves of their racism, and then there's present discrimination to, reconcile and, make up for past discrimination. It's a completely antithetical message and worldview, like you talked about, to the gospel, where the gospel is about grace, where we're sinful. We're all fall short of the glory of God. It doesn't matter what skin color, doesn't matter what background, we all fall short of the glory of God, and we're needing of his grace, right? And as Christians, we show grace to each other, not because we did anything good or they did anything good, but because he is good and because he died on the cross for us, right? And so he paid that ultimate price. So it's completely antithetical to the Bible. And the biggest thing that just really is very alarming to me is it's critical race theory is predicated on secular ideologies perpetuated by godless, secular philosophers and academics who hate God, who denounce Christ. And we're adopting that.
Yeah.
We're taking that ideology and shoving it into the Bible and trying to reinterpret the Bible through the lens of critical race theory. That's called heresy, my dudes. Like, that is called heresy. And everyone, all these pastors, like, just because you believe in critical race theory doesn't... No, that means you're heretical.
Exactly.
Like, that is not the way we should be interpreting the Bible. We look at the Bible... And, that's what exegesis is. We look at the Bible and we look at what actually the intent of the authors were, the cultural context of that time. We don't look to other secular ideologies. We just look to the Word of God first and foremost.
No. Critical
and understand what
race
his
theory is a
message
lens
is.
through which we can view the Bible.
No, he's being facetious.
Yeah.
I know. It's but I've heard that. I've actually heard that. And it's absolutely insane to me how people who claim to be Christian and set apart from the world are doing the exact opposite that Romans 12 tells us to do, which is not conform to the world, but they're conforming to the patterns of the world. And I'm like, how do you guys not see how unbiblical this is and how Jesus warned us against this? Jesus said the world will hate you for following me, right? If you are completely aligned with the world, maybe you're doing something wrong. Maybe you aren't on the side of truth, right?
I have a buddy who wrote an article and basically laying out that if you look at the Bible through the lens of critical race theory, then Jesus, the only perfect man to walk the earth, is a white supremacist and needs to be canceled.
Well, Jesus is a racist now. Did you hear about that? That's the new thing.
You guys saw that
white
TikTok
Jesus
pastor,
is
right?
Evil. I know that.
There's this pastor on TikTok who literally made the claim that Jesus was a racist.
Yes, I saw that. I
was like, what?
There is a quote-unquote pastor. This guy claims that he's a pastor, completely full of it. Literally claimed that Christ was a racist because he was basically pointing out Jewish racism in a simultaneous... Like, it was a passage where I think it was the Samaritan... Was it the Samaritan? That came... Not the Samaritan.
Yeah.
The Samaritan woman came to him and said, Lord, heal my daughter, I believe in you, Lord. I'm paraphrasing, I'm totally butchering this right now. But Jesus is like, what did he say? He's like, should I give my blessing to the dogs or something like that, which is like a common Jewish phrase for people that were non-Jewish or whatever. And she said, like, even the dogs get the scraps from the table, you know, and Jesus, like, your faith has healed you, your faith has saved you. And Jesus is not saying this in the context like he's a racist. He's challenging her. He's seeing, like, hey, this is what the Jews think of you, so what should I do, right? And she showed and demonstrated faith to the perfect God. And literally, they use that. Sorry, we got some music jamming. Who just followed, man? Who just followed?
Well, that was CEO of Lame with a subscription and a gifted subscription.
Thanks, CEO from Lame, man. We love you, brother. But literally, like, and this pastor takes that and says, she spoke truth to the power, and she spoke truth to Jesus. And I'm like,
is this
what?
Is this the same guy who said amen and a women?
Probably the same pastor that's out there. But sadly, that's what... I hate to say it, but like mainstream evangelicals are becoming. They're allowing this to happen. It's a slow decline, right? You got the Methodist Church split on gay marriage or gay pastors. I mean, like, that's a discussion. I didn't know that was. You know, there's so many things that are kind of eroding in front of us, and the deception's happening because they're literally playing on the fact that followers of Christ are naturally compassionate people. We're compassionate. We love people. We want people to, if there's an injustice, we want to help out. We want to, solve problems. But we're manifesting, we're creating this crisis, this critical race, blah, blah, blah. And it's deceiving a lot of people and pastors.
We're high in compassion and low on discernment.
100%. So you got...
in America.
You got J.D. Greear and you got freaking Matt Chandler up there saying, hey, I'm an evil person because I'm white. No, you're an evil person because you're in the flesh. Period. You're a human. Period. It has nothing to do with your whiteness. Like, I can't find that verse in the Bible where white is evil. I still can't find it. Have you seen that one or not?
I've been looking for it. I just can't.
I can't seem to find it. But yeah, it's weird.
If I search on Google.
Google search it. Maybe that pastor will come up and show you. But no, that's kind of how it is, man. It's crazy, man. But tell me a little bit. So obviously you're a follower of Christ, man. You know, if you need a second calling, I'm going to tell you can be a pastor because you're just killing it there a few minutes ago and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
But we're just blowing up today, dude. Kangmin, you're making.
It's CEO of Lame. He's
dude. No, it is. It's Kung. It's our boy.
Well, yeah. I mean,
you're making us money right now, bro. We appreciate you. People just are blowing us up right now. It's crazy. But so kind of reconcile these two things, because obviously, growing up in LA, because I can attest to this. I lived in Los Angeles. I'm gonna be real with you. My what I always tell people is when it comes to Los Angeles and being a follower of Christ, it's the testing grounds. LA is the ultimate testing grounds, because what I felt like living in LA was this: if you followed Christ, they looked at you like you had a mental disorder. You know what I mean? You're like, oh my gosh, you like Jesus? Like, what's wrong with you? Oh my goodness! And I was definitely tested. You know, it was fortified. You know, living. You know, especially being on the UCLA campus and so on and so forth. But people don't really understand that world or don't understand where that's coming from. But so you kind of got a double whammy. Not only are you a follower of Christ, you're a conservative now, so you got red-pilled simultaneously. So kind of explain to people why do you have conservative thoughts and opinions in light of your faith in Christ?
I think, and this is what I actually tweeted this recently because this kind of like thought came to my head, but progressivism, like, relies on social justice for salvation. And Christians, we find our salvation in Jesus, right? So our only hope in salvation is Jesus, but progressives see it as social justice. And so progressive Christians also believe this notion that in order to find salvation, you need to do whatever the woke cult tells you to do, right? And it's doing the social justice stuff in order to become an ally, in order to do all these things. And I realized fundamentally progressivism, leftism, everything from the left, it's predicated on a legalistic worldview where you have to work for your salvation. You have to do this and that for your salvation in order to be accepted, in order to relieve yourself of racism and bigotry and misogyny, or become an ally, right? You have to do all these things.
Against racism, you have to be actively anti-racist.
Exactly. So there's these... Exactly. This is the exact same thing that they say, right? But Jesus says, come as you are, right? Jesus says, come as you are, with all your sin, with all your baggage, with everything that you've done in life. You can be I'm a terrible person. Like, I have a really dark past, but Jesus still said, come. You know, he still said, "Come," and I died for you, and I gave up everything for you, right? That cross that you were meant to die, I died that death, right? Completely different, and that's the basis of what we see so differently between progressivism and progressivism. I guess progressivism and conservatism, because conservatism says that our hope and trust isn't, and Trump said this, you know, when he first got into office, which I really like. We don't put our hope and trust in government. We put our hope and trust in God, right? And is he actually a Christian? I don't believe so, but I do believe that Trump fully believes in the notion that faith, family, and freedoms are the key to healthy communities, right? But what leftism says is you need the government to come in. You need these people, and it's the ultimate. I guess, narcissistic mindset where they say, hey, like, you know, there's a soft bigotry of low expectations. White people, because they truly believe that white people are so much better than minorities, the white people need to become an ally, and white people need to do these things to help out other minorities. Well, yeah. And we need to have free healthcare, free education, everything.
CRT is shadow white supremacy.
Right.
It
really is.
It assumes white supremacy, and thus, we have to do something about it. It assumes that whites are superior in society, and thus, whites need to be, flogged for it, and then appropriately converted, and all minorities need to rise up against it, as opposed to accepting the reality that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I've heard of that before. Where's that?
Yeah,
where's that from?
Right.
You know the thing.
The thing. You know the thing. Corn pop.
No, it's the thing.
The thing. You know. Oh man, speaking of green
That's just
screen,
the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So, we always talk about conservatism and progressivism. Right? Progressivism always has to progress away from something, right? And the values that the nation was founded on. Whether people, because here's the thing, I'm not going to sit there and say like all of our founders were all followers of Christ. I'm never going to take that leap. I'm not going to take that leap and say that Trump's a follower of Christ. We agree with you on that. I think that when you get to that level of like worldly success, because let's get real. Arguably, Trump is one of the most successful human beings to walk the planet, right? He built a huge business, made a lot of money, been there, done that, had the supermodels, had it all. He's literally Solomon, right? Of like, I've had it all, I've been there, done that, right? At some point, you realize like, if I'm at the top, and if you're honestly looking at yourself, you're like, man, I suck. So, like, clearly there's God. Clearly there's something above, you know what I mean, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that's the step that leads him to Christ down the road, you know what I mean? So I guess my next question for you would be, seeing progressivism just literally progress away from the Constitution, progress away from values and so on and so forth. As a conservative, it's like, the paint that we always get as conservatives is, oh, you're just a bunch of racists and blah, 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 blah. And what I've been noticing, especially now, is this. If people take like honest evaluations of their actual core beliefs and values, they line up 99 times with conservative values. Like, I can't speak for, Asians in America or Koreans in America, but, black communities and hillbilly communities, I'm half white too, so I've got the half hillbilly, so I'm always confused. I'm either oppressed or not oppressed, depending on the day. It's just weird how that works, right? But, like, most country values rally around conservatism, right? So this idea, I feel like a lot of people that are jumping on the progressive bandwagon are literally fighting their own values. They're fighting their own core principles. Because, at the end of the day, like, what do we teach our kids growing up? It's like, well, you're not going to amount to anything unless the government steps in. No one ever tells their kids that. Like, no rational, good parent says that. He might say that to his daughters. I'm just kidding. You've never said that. But nobody says that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody says, well, because of your color, you're just never going to progress in this world. That's the story people want to paint. But the reality of the situation is no one would tell their kids.
What's sad, though, is that there are parents nowadays, inducted into this cult that are telling their kids that.
Yeah,
You're never going to be successful.
It's pathetic.
Because you're not this, or you're not that, or you are this, or you
The
are
world is out to get you.
But here's the thing, like the notion
the world is run by white people.
Well, the notion of the black community forever was we'll never have a black president, right? Never have a black president. Then Obama happens. Well, that got thrown out the window, right? And maybe I'm speaking for you, but I don't know if your parents were like, hey, listen, you're never going to make it until, there's an Asian president. I mean, let's get real. Like did your parents ever tell you that or say that to you? I mean,
No. Not at all.
Did you need someone in power in government to validate your ability to do what you've got to do? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, it's like government was so far away. It was so I was so far detached from government. I was so not into politics for 22 years of my life that they were completely irrelevant to me.
Mm-hmm.
But until it got to a point where the culture got so bad where I had to engage,
Yeah. That's crazy, man. So tell me a little bit, what are your thoughts, where do you see the country going in the next couple of years? Because obviously we got good old green screen Biden right now in office as the selected president of the United States of America. Like, where do you see us going in the next 4 years, in your opinion?
Next 4 years is going to be a rough 4 years for sure. And honestly, here's the thing. I also asked Dennis Prager about this because we were talking on his fireside chat, and I asked him, can we ever achieve unity with these people? And he said no. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, how can you ever unify with people who think that men can give birth and men can menstruate? How are you supposed to unify with these crazy people? Because they live in their fantasy worlds. And I truly believe that. But the thing is, though, it's a small minority that's super loud. So the Twitter rage mob doesn't really actually represent most of America, right? Whenever I live my normal everyday life, most people I know and people around me are left leaning, but they're sensible human beings, right? If I don't bring up politics, they treat me like a normal person. We talk about life, we talk about sports, we talk about music, we talk about so many other things in our culture and so many other things in life. We talk about how our families are doing, any plans for the future, our aspirations, so many things, right? And most people are in the middle or center left, right? But because these institutions are so far left and because the loudest voices on the internet are so far left, it influences these people. So I think one thing that we can do as conservatives is to, fix our messaging, definitely be above reproach and not do stupid things like storm the Capitol. But, fix our messaging and let them know that most of your values that you believe in are conservative. For sports players, right? Everything that you value and you believe as an athlete is conservative. Hard work. No one's just gonna hand you your success. You gotta do it by yourself. Pull up yourself after pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Discipline. All these things are conservative values, right? When you look at a lot of Asians too, most Asians, I grew up with my mom saying don't expect any handouts from me. I'm not gonna help you. I'm like, okay, don't expect any handouts from your teacher. Don't expect any handouts from anyone else. You're gonna work for what you get, and you're gonna earn whatever you put in, right? So it's this idea of hard work, discipline, individual responsibility, and most Asians feel this way, except for the spoiled brats who grew up in the nice gated communities of OC, and they don't actually realize what they have, and they're just ungrateful. But I think this goes back to the point. Yeah, crazy rich Asians, man, so spoiled. But I think it just goes back to that point where I do think that we can get to a place of sanity again if conservatives fix their messaging, aren't just completely about destroying the libs. Because I see so many people who are conservatives, but all they do is, cuss liberals out and cuss out people who disagree with them on the internet, which is clearly, I don't think that's conservatism at all. And, fix the messaging, reach out to people and get people who are in the middle to leave the left, leave the Democratic Party. And even if they're not full staunch conservatives, show them, hey, everything that you believe in and everything that you value is actually a conservative value. Here's why. But I think the focusing on socialism sucks, big government sucks, I think it kind of works to a certain extent. But I think when we really get to the nitty gritty, it really starts with each conservative reaching out to people in their immediate circles, in their local communities, and slowly convincing them and showing them that your value system aligns with conservatism because what you think is moral and good, and your value system is the inheritance of a Judeo-Christian value system on which this country was founded on.
Yeah. So, I totally agree with you, man. And I was listening to Vodi Bakum a couple weeks ago, and he said, like,
oh, he's great.
I love Vodi. He's my dude. I always joke around. I was like, if Vodi Bakum pulls a freaking Joel Osteen, Jesus is coming, because it's it's over, man. It's over. All the mainstream guys are out. But I'm just saying. He said that the biggest thing too for us is this, like, there's a big push in shocker. The same people that are pushing CRT and critical race theory in evangelical churches are the same people that are like, we just shouldn't make things political. We shouldn't be political. We shouldn't blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that's the opposite. Like, if your values are your values, you should know who your mayor is. You should know who your elected officials are. You should know from that from the ground up, and that's what ultimately helps things get where they need to be. And, being in Florida now for 10 years, I've kind of seen that. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen the state get redder. It used to be a very purple state, right? This was the battleground state, good old Florida and stuff like that. And slowly but surely it's become very red because I think those smaller wins are happening on a smaller scale to create the DeSantises of the world, to keep the Rhino Republicans in check, But, I mean, sadly, they have an awesome governor, but we just had, eight senators vote for that, the gun bill?
Yeah.
Republicans, and 3 of them were from Florida, so we got to get rid of... No, they're Miami Republicans, so that's a totally different game. But, for us... But, like, we... As followers of Christ, it's not like, if we're outside of the game, that doesn't make sense to me, especially when I read the Bible and I'm sitting there, like, reading the book of Judges, and I'm like, wow, like, you're hearing these crazy stories where a lot of the stories are political stories. Like, Tribe of Benjamin messes up. Most of Israel comes out to shellac them, you know what I mean? Because they screwed up, you know what I mean? And I won't go into that dreadful story in Judges. But, like, there are a lot of political things, because at the end of the day, our morality is our morality, and it guides the direction of where we're going. And the beautiful thing is, our morality, which is truth, ultimately gives forgiveness for people who are not followers of Christ, or are not in the Word, you know what I mean? Like, the Jews were commanded over and over again to treat sojourners good. We as Christians are commanded to love one another, right? You know what I mean? But love isn't always hugs and kisses and, puppies and all blah, blah, blah. Like, sometimes it's telling the truth and saying, hey, listen, I really don't want a shim coming into my bathroom with my daughters. Like, I don't want that to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's not my thing. So, for you...
Same thing for my sons.
Yeah, same thing for your sons, right? Exactly. Like, you don't want that craziness where you are. So, like, when I look at the landscape of America, especially because you're talking about, you're up in Minnesota right now. You came from LA, so you went from blue to bluer, and you're going to Atlanta, that's become very blue, and possibly Boston down the road, and so on and so forth is blue. We're spoiled rotten. We're in Florida. We look around, you throw a stone, there's still Trump signs up. There's still Trump flags up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A ton of
them. Trump.
Trust me, I drive around town all day long. That's 90% of my job. And it's Trump flag, Trump flag, Trump flag, Trump flag, Trump flag. Okay, it's all right.
And you were joking about it before the show. You were talking because you were at CPAC, and I would love to hear your perspective on CPAC as well. But, you said you were tasting the freedom when you came down here to Florida and so on and so forth. How is it like living in blue state? Because we're kind of like just two countries now, right? We're blue states and red states. Right. How is it like being a conservative, especially a follower of Christ, in a blue state right now?
Definitely a little lonelier, because most of Minnesota outside the cities is red. Like almost all of it is red. That's why I thought Minnesota would go red this year, because whenever I would drive, like, I just 10 minutes out of the city, I just saw Trump signs everywhere, right? But the concentration of the population in the city is so dense, I guess we didn't win. But
real quick, side note, do you think it was legit though in Minnesota with your girl Ilhan Omar selling? Okay, I was just checking, man.
Oh, absolutely not. But hopefully I don't get canceled and deplatformed for saying that. But I don't think it was.
You're all right, bro. We're not big enough yet for that.
But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely lonelier, because I know whenever I get into an Uber or I drive here, but whenever I get meet random people or new people, I know they're left leaning. Like at work all the time, like most people at work, for me personally, aren't very political, but when it does come up, they always say like, "Oh, conservative propaganda. Oh, like Trump said this. Oh, I was like, right." And it seems like everyone at work hates Trump. And so like I just feel like I'm on an island, And then I go to Florida and I take an Uber, out to CPAC, and they're like, "Oh, where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to CPAC." He's like, "Oh yeah, dude, I'm a Trump supporter too." And I'm like, "Oh really?" They're like, "Yeah, dude, like I love it, man." And these are minorities, these are people who you wouldn't expect if you only follow the mainstream news to be conservative. But they're like, "Oh yeah, Trump 2020, bro. Yeah, Trump 2020." Like everywhere in Florida, in Orlando, even although it's a super blue, it's still blue, right? It's like there's tons of Trump supporters in Orlando, and they're super open about it. So I think the Florida vibe is definitely very interesting to me, because kind of like what you talked about earlier. I think when we were off, not live, you were talking about how you guys are just like, "Yo, like I don't give beep, it's like let me do, I'm gonna live my life. You can try to make me wear a mask, but I'm not gonna wear a mask. I'm not gonna lock down. I'm not gonna stop loving my community and meeting up together in community just because you tyrannical government is telling me to do these things." Like I get that vibe from Florida, but then you go into these blue areas and they all shut up, sit down. Yes, master. Whatever the government tells me to do, I'm gonna obey.
Yeah. Sad. And to your point, like I think it sucks because I still have a lot of friends in California, so I got a lot of friends that are like Fresno area and like middle of California. And that's a red area of California. Like people don't realize, like people there, there's Republican House representatives that come out of there, right? So it's funny when I always look at a map and I just look at the country and it's red with a few blue dots. You know what I mean? And then even now, I kind of question it even in Florida if Orlando was even really blue. I think maybe that was some of that Dominion magic or something like that magically had in Orlando. But I mean, it is funny, and I was seeing all the CPAC videos where I was watching all the CPAC videos of people, walking in and like taking their mask off, and they're like, "What? Whoa. What? I can do that here? This is crazy." You know what I mean? So
shout out to Elliot Sloss for the 10 gifted subs.
Whoa, Elliot! Thanks, bro. Thanks for the gifted subs, man. Dude, you're a moneymaker. You make it rain, brother. I love this, man. Thanks for coming on our show. Tell us about,
of course, dude.
Yeah, tell us about CPAC, man. Tell us all about CPAC. What were your thoughts? What was the highlight? What did you like the most?
CPAC was really good. So I actually thought I would see like most of the speakers. I only saw like Trump, DeSantis, Ted Cruz, Kristi Noem. That's it. Like all the other speakers, because I was out networking, I was out meeting people. I was in the media booth. I was in CPAC Central, where they have all the other booths for all the other organizations. I was just out and about meeting people and talking to people, and it was super cool because I got to meet a lot of people that I've met online. I got to meet in person. I got a couple of interviews from different companies, different organizations, and it was really, really fun. I got really connected with a lot of people, so that was really fun and that was really awesome. But I think one thing I've been very disappointed about with CPAC is kind of like they're kind of. Now, I'm not saying that we can't adopt the tactics of the left, but I think what they're doing right now is kind of like I don't like it. And what I mean by that is like they're completely deviating from biblical values and just kind of saying like, yeah, like there's the very like libertarian mindset coming in where like and for me. I'm not gonna hold non-believers to a standard that believers should be held to, right? So I'm not gonna tell a non-Christian like, hey, like I'm gonna tell them, I'm gonna exhort them and say, hey, like you probably shouldn't sleep before marriage. It's actually not good for you. But like I'm not gonna expect them to do that, right? So I'm not gonna expect a non-Christian conservative to not sleep before marriage. But I think what's happening right now is this libertarian mindset is taking over conservative movement, and I love libertarians. Like I really do not like big government. But this libertarianism is kind of taking over where, drag queens can come in, people who are openly practicing and engaging in LGBTQ lifestyles are coming in to represent the conservative movement. And I'm like, if we're accepting that, then what are we conserving? Because it is and the conservatism is not Christianity. Like I know that, and there's a distinction between the two, but. And I'm not saying we should exclude people who are LGBT. Like, I welcome them very much as conservatives. But if we are making them the face of conservatives, like, what are we actually conserving? Because this is the slippery slope that I've always talked about. Even in 2015, when Hodges versus Obergefell passed in the Supreme Court and gay marriage was legalized all throughout 50 states, I was like, this is going to be a slippery slope. Yeah. And everyone's like, no, it's not. And clearly it is. And so once we allow and concede grounds for these socially conservative values, and we're like, okay, that's okay, you just do this, you do this, you get things like Cardi B, twerking and whapping all over the place, on the Grammys, and that's okay, but then God forbid Dr. Seuss or Dumbo is harmful to kids, so you got to deplatform that, right? So this is the kind of things that we're seeing with conservatives, where they're conceding grounds of social conservatism in the name of inclusivity, which is exactly what the left does. Sure. And I just don't think it's a good place to go. And I saw that a lot with CPAC. And I was just kind of like, I love CPAC and I think they're doing a great thing. But I think what we need to kind of focus on is going back to socially conservative ideas and make that a winning message, because like you said, most people are actually pretty socially conservative. Most black people are socially conservative. Most Asians are also socially conservative. They just kind of don't know it because these institutions of power are indoctrinating them with this nonsense. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like where we need to go back to. And I was kind of seeing that, and there's a panel, actually. I don't know if you guys know the Falkirk Center at Liberty U. And they do great things, and they had a panel with Abby Johnson, Jenna Ellis, and all these Christian conservatives, where they talked about we need to bring Jesus back into conservatism and like the conservative conversation. How the more that we,
how dare you say his name?
Because it's you don't have to be a Christian to be a conservative, but conservatism, the social conservative values, is predicated and based on Judeo-Christian values, and once you start to strip that away in the name of inclusivity and saying, hey, like, we're all welcoming, which we are, but once you start to strip away those biblical values, that's when you start to see, like this introduction and like acceptance and even support of anti-biblical lifestyles. I'm not saying we shouldn't tolerate it or accept them as human beings as conservatives, and they can be a gay conservative, you can be a transgender conservative. Like, I'm not saying you can't be a conservative, but it's like, why are we uplifting these people and why are we propping these people up? Because they're not social. Like, for example, you guys know Blair White, right? Yeah. I actually really like Blair White, and Blair White's probably the only transgender person I'll ever use their like transgender pronouns for, because she looks like a woman, and I think she's great because she doesn't want to be a face for the conservative movement. She says openly, like, I don't want other people to transition. This is me. And I believe that children should be on puberty blockers. We shouldn't indoctrinate them with this LGBTQ nonsense. And it's okay if you don't believe that I should be a transgender. Like, I'm okay with that. And I like that, because that's the stance that we should have, where we're not propping up these people, but we are accepting them, right? But I think in the name of inclusivity and trying to like reach out for like those minority outreaches that the left does so much, the right is also doing that, and we're sacrificing those biblical values that really made us distinct from just pure libertarianism, anarchy, where you just do what you want to do.
Well, the hard part is that the political movement is not a church movement. Yeah.
Right.
Like I think we should bring Jesus back. We all do, because Jesus is central, but and I think Jesus has a place. No, well, Jesus, of course, Jesus has a place.
I was about to drop an elbow on you, bro.
Well, yeah. Jesus always has a place.
He should
But
have a place.
But let's face it, the road is narrow. That leads to life, The bulk of any political movement is not going to be.
We're having a donation battle right now, my friend. We got two cats that are just like donating. They got stimulated today. They got their Biden stimmy, so they're going after it right now on our.
Biden stimmy.
I'm playing with you, man. I'm playing with you.
The bulk of a political movement is going to be secular. How do we deal with? I mean, ultimately, I believe personally, the libertarian point of view is the only one that's going to have a tent big enough for us to preach Jesus, and them to do whatever they want as well. Like, for instance, on the gay marriage, you're right about that case. but really it's an overstep of the Supreme Court. That's not their job to make law, you know, and then ultimately I believe that the conservative movement had been pretty authoritarian under the religious right in the 90s, and they were making the wrong argument, which was gay marriage shouldn't be a thing. It isn't a thing, and we can't have it. It'll destroy society, which as a Christian,
it's kind of true though.
Is true. It's true.
Kind of true.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's also another truth. The other truth is, and it's the winning truth, I think, in a political argument. The government shouldn't be involved in marriages.
No.
The less government we have, the more everybody's protected.
The more liberty we have.
The more liberty we have, yeah. So the church, see, when the state's involved in government and then we make gay marriage legal, it's only a matter of time before churches are forced to perform gay marriages or lose their 501c3 status or whatever else they want to do.
Which might be a good thing for the church, though, sadly.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't know.
But a government that's not involved in marriage, well, this person has the right to say whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I see both sides. I think I'm with you, coming on a couple things. I think one, truth is based on there has to be an objective standard, right? So the concept of freedom and liberty inherently comes from the Word of God. Mm-hmm. It doesn't come from anywhere else, right? So to have that freedom, really, what is obeying Christ? It's not about just obeying Christ. It's about freedom, right? God wants you to be free from stupidity. If you lie a bunch of times, well, guess what? You're going to get caught up in lies, right? If you start banging broads left and right, you're going to have kids all over. You know what I mean? Not that kids are bad. We love our babies. Don't get me wrong. We're anti-abortion here. But, reality of the situation is, how are you going to be a great father? How are you going to be a great dad with kiddos running all around, right? How are you going to be, back to the LGBTQ situation, right? It's like, we don't talk about how many LGBTQ are on antidepressants. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about how depressed that community is. We don't talk about the fact that people that transition into transgenderism, 40% of them are likely to commit suicide. No one wants to talk about that either, right? Because it's really about what's best, what's better than our sinful, concoctions of what we think our life is supposed to be, right? And I see where you're coming from, because that would be a fear of mine. It's like, that's why, for me, I haven't really lumped myself with the Republicans or really lumped with, the conservatives or whatever. I think for me, I've always, we all do this, right? We all follow Christ first, and then we're like, okay, based on the issues, who am I okay with my vote going to? You know what I mean? Crazy, I want that freaking crazy orange man to be my president badly, because, heck, things worked out pretty well for the last 4 years because of that crazy orange man. You know what I mean? And he defended Christian liberty and so on and so forth. And to your point, the more government we have involved, we're going to have the, what was that crappy bill they're trying to push right now? The,
which one?
Which
There's
one, right?
300.
The one where if you get government money, you have to accept trannies and gays and so on and so forth. The Christian
the
organization.
state money stuff.
Yeah, the blood money.
Yeah,
what was it? Inclusive.
HR 164.
Yeah, I mean, because eventually, what's going to happen, sadly, is there's going to be here's what's amazing to me. To your point earlier, the heads of these evangelical organizations got deceived massively with BLM. A lot of them got deceived massively with the Rona, right? They're like, oh my gosh, everyone's going to die from Rona. Shut down church, right? So we're violating the Word of God.
Huh? Leave the bars open.
Yeah, leave the bars open.
Leave the strip clubs.
Leave the abortion. Leave the abortion clinics open, but close the churches. And we're going to follow that because the government said so. As But if you're following Rona orders and you're following this idea that everybody's oppressed in America, blah blah blah, it's not a far stretch for you to be like, well, you know what? Because the government said so, we're going to hire Pastor Jim, who happens to like dudes, even though that's antithetical to the message. We're going to have to hire trainee, Bobby here to run our kids ministry. And it's like, that's kind of where we're going. You know what I mean? And if we don't, they're going to take away our tax exempt status. And I'm sitting here thinking, at the conservatarians, that libertarian part of me is like, good, burn it down. Let's start over with this. But I see where you're coming from. I totally get it, man. So
yeah.
Well, here's my larger point. A conservative political movement cannot be a replacement for the church.
No.
The church is not doing its job.
We're on the sidelines.
We're on the sidelines. We're not proclaiming Jesus. That's why the conservative movement is lacking Jesus.
Yeah.
Because our culture is lacking Jesus. Because the church is not doing anything. Well, and so, in a situation like that, the only political movement that makes sense to keep the possibility for the church movement to actually have a role in our culture is a libertarian approach. Less government.
Mm-hmm.
That's a better way of putting what I meandered through.
I got you. Listen, you're talking about Jesus not being in his place.
Yeah, well.
I was a little worried. I
immediately corrected that guy.
Embarrassing me in front of my friends.
I immediately corrected that guy.
Embarrassing me in front of my friends. I'm supposed to be the foolish part of the show.
Well, listen, the Philosopher King does mess up from time to time.
Wait.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Bullcrap. Hey, so we got about 15 minutes left in the show, man, and I really want to get your... Go ahead.
Well, we want to talk about the Stop Asian Hate.
Yeah, that's what I was going for, bro. Why are you stopping this show, bro?
You're stopping.
Because you can go forever.
Come on,
you can go forever.
Man. So, give us your thoughts that are going on with... Because really, that's becoming a hot-button topic. I've seen a couple videos that are absolutely horrendous. I kind of saw Crowder's take on this. Just kind of pointing out a few things when it comes to those statistics, but obviously coming from the Asian community, what are your thoughts on what's going on, what's transpiring, and what do you think's going on with that?
The media and the left is doing the exact same thing they did with BLM, where they're completely silent when the perpetrators are of a minority or the victims are white, and then as soon as a white person does it against a minority, headline news, the internet blows up, right? They did the same exact thing with BLM, right? They were completely silent because there are more white people who die unarmed from the police or due to the police than black people every year. There's tons of footage, tons of victims. For example, in 2016, Tony Timpa actually died because he couldn't breathe anymore because the police had his knee on his neck. On top of that, he was autistic, right? But he was white, so no one cared. But then the same thing happens to George Floyd. Every single major city burns down. And so the same exact thing happened here where I am not pinning this all on one race because this is not a race issue. This is a sin issue. And this is what I always make. Even racism comes from sin. But the more that we make it a race issue, the more that we let these people in power, the media, the left, divide us further. But the people who are committing these surging Asian hate crimes, the people largely responsible were black criminals in inner city communities run by Democrats.
How dare you?
Right?
I'm just kidding.
Well, that's impossible.
I'm sorry.
That's
oh my
impossible.
God.
You told the truth?
Impossible.
Are you kidding me?
And it's absolutely despicable. I go through these news articles and I have to look through at least 5 for the same story to at least find a picture or a name for the perpetrator of these crimes because every single news outlet leaves out the identity. Sure. They always do. They say, this person was attacked today. I'm like, okay, where's the video? Where's the footage? Where's the picture? They don't do it. They're like, okay, this is a developing story. And they don't actually include the identity because it completely destroys their narrative. Every single instance of Asian hate crime had every single freaking time, so a social justice warrior, a woke cult ideologue from the left always says this is because of Trump's rhetoric, because this is because of China's virus, this is because of Trump supporters, white conservatives, white nationalism, white supremacy, all these things. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, are you kidding me? If you really think that inner city black criminals who are stabbing and killing and raping Asian people this past year are influenced by Trump's rhetoric, you should leave the political discourse at once. Yeah. You have no space. You literally have no place in it because you're a freaking turd. I don't know how else to say it. Your brain has gone to mush if you really think that. And I've seen this on Twitter all day today too, where we're like, hey, this is an isolated incident, but tons of it has been happening from black people.
Yeah.
And they say, no, it's because white supremacy has caused and cultivated a system of oppression that forced black individuals to kill and rape and pillage Asians. And I was like, what? Like, oh my gosh.
think-
Right? So this
I think it's climate
absurdity, I
change,
mean,
though. I think it's
They've
got to be
got a
climate
point.
change. No,
No, well, they've got a point. Okay, it is the white supremacy system that has made the Asian communities the most successful communities in all of America.
I
that,
know.
that then cause black people to hate them because their communities aren't doing as well.
So it's all about whitey.
Yeah.
So it's really it's your problem.
Again, oh man,
It's your problem again.
the white man strikes again. He purposefully made Asians do better in America so that they would be targeted by
Yeah.
by the black community.
Here's
amazing.
the thing. The same anti-racist CRT prophets who labeled Asians as like white adjacent this past year are now suddenly standing in solidarity. The same like Ibram X. Kendi, all these
because these guys
absolute
are scum.
fools.
Yeah.
Because these people are scum
They're
of the earth. They
complete
don't actually
scum.
believe this stuff. They don't actually believe it. It is just a means of achieving their own wealth and power. They're the ultimate con men. We're being conned.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting.
So true.
You,
It's absolutely true. I mean, Ibram X. Kendi, he gets paid or he charges like public school libraries, elementary schools, all these institutions $15,000 for an hour speaking engagement. You know he doesn't actually believe this. If he actually believed this and believed that he was fighting against a system of oppression, he would not get paid that much and he would do it for free. There's tons of conservative speakers that I know who are very on the forefronts of fighting against this woke mob who do a lot of their speaking engagements for free because they believe in the cause. Ibram X. Kendi, Robin DiAngelo, all these people who get paid tens of thousands of dollars for hour speaking engagements, get millions of dollars from book sales, they don't actually believe in this. You know, if their ideology was the side of the resistance, they wouldn't be making so much money off of it. And they don't actually believe in it, like you said. They're scum and they're people who use racial divides in this country to benefit themselves financially. It's absolutely disgusting.
Well, they're just following in the footsteps of Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. They've just got this really, really infectious idea that makes it even more possible for them.
Yeah.
This idea is so viral, you know, that it's really escalated them in such a quick amount of time. And then to your point about the money that they're making, you know, BLM has spent almost none of their money on anything related to this cause.
Well, it's not almost, it's nothing. They haven't spent anything on the cause.
Well,
they've
spent money paying for the people who speak about the cause.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
You know.
Gotcha.
They gave, what was it, several $1 million to Biden's campaign.
Oh, yeah.
He's met with them, right?
No.
Yeah. So here's my question back to the
No.
not at all. To Asian violence in America. Is America going to take the bait on this? I mean, because I see what's going on with this. Clearly, this is Black Lives Matter round 2, and we're trying really hard to stir things up because you have to.
They've been talking about it for months. The Asian hate crime. This isn't a new thing that just came out of the blue. They've been talking about Asian hate crimes, but it was always nebulous. Like to your point, they never gave persons or specifics. It was just the numbers are rising.
Yep.
Because they were waiting all this time. Eventually, a white person will do something.
Finally got one.
They're the bulk of the population. It has to happen.
Statistically,
Yeah,
it will
eventually happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see America taking the bait on this one. I don't know. I think America's so exhausted with all of this stupidity. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know if you guys saw across the pond in England, they're like hating all men now. Like that's the new thing. This girl, horrible crime, gets raped, murdered, blah blah blah, and like the hashtag like all men or something like that started in the UK. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but it's to the point where like they're trying to impose a curfew on men Men can only be out till 6 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? It's like,
Jeez.
what in the world is happening? And it's like, it's continual shifting of blame. It's continually shifting away from things that are really happening. Like, you got people, and I'm not minimizing the crimes that are happening to the Asian community, you know, but
Because
at
they're
the same
gross.
time,
They're
but yeah,
bad.
they're disgusting. At the same time, there's things happening to the black people, Latino people, white people, all over America right now. It's just not in the news cycle. It's not being used as a prop. You know, we just signed, what is it? We just got our stimmies from $1.9 trillion of money just printed, which everybody's jacked up about with their stimmy right now. But 6 months from now, when gas jumps up to $3.50 down here in Florida, I don't know what your gas is right now up there in Minnesota. What is it right now for you guys?
Oh, it's hitting already $3.
When I first got here, it was like 185.
What is it now?
Or something like that around there, and then now it's like 260.
260. So when it jumps up to 350, people are gonna be like, "What the heck happened to my stimmy?" You know, they're gonna be really sad about it. You know, we've got a massive border crisis going on right now, the worst we've ever seen. No one's talking about that.
Yeah.
You know, tensions in the Middle East are bubbling over right now. We're not talking about that right now.
Russia
You know,
just pulled their ambassador from the United States.
yeah, man, we just got a lot of crazy things going, and we're pushing Green Screen Joe, and we're pushing Asian hate crimes when there's real things that are affecting, you know, and again, those things truly happen to people, and they're horrible things. They should absolutely,
But
you know.
is that national news?
No. Because, I mean, flip a coin. There's crimes happening in Minnesota all the time, right? There's crimes happening in Orlando all the time.
Florida man.
Florida, I mean, we're a meme. Florida man. We have it all the time. We almost got guys eating people's faces down here, you know what I mean? High on fentanyl, you know what I mean? But,
Hitting people with cans of beer.
yeah, I mean, and that's what's amazing to me. So, like,
It
I
was
guess...
a Twisted Tea. Thank you very much.
Twisted Tea,
so
sorry. But, you know, that's where kind of I'm trying to think is, like, is America going to take the bait? You know, I'm seeing... You know, you were talking about whopping earlier, which was hilarious, by the way. I love that verb, whopping. I'm stealing that one for sure. But, you know, what the Grammys had like a 50% decline in viewing. You know, the Golden Globes had a 60% decline.
64.
64, jeez, yeah. You know, the NBA, like nobody's watching the NBA right now. You know, and all these places that are manufacturing all this woke BS, I feel like it's losing traction. And I think it's probably why, you know, even the Asian hate crime thing, which is there's serious things happening, but nobody's biting on it because they're like, dude, I'm so tired of this bullcrap. Like, leave me alone. Give me my stimmy and leave me alone. You know what I mean? So I guess that's my fear is the low info cats are going to say, oh, yeah, there's an epidemic in America. Asians are getting slaughtered by white people, even though there's only one case that we can find right now, you know? And it's like... You
Even he said it wasn't about race.
Yeah, exactly, right? And there's clearly systematic racism everywhere, even though it's never stopped me from doing anything. But, you know, it's like... I guess my thing is this, is like, where do we... how do we encourage people in America? How do we encourage followers of Christ? How do we encourage people in this season? Because everything's a season, right? There's a season for everything. Like, what would your encouragement be to people? What would your message be to people? And how would you send our viewers off in a warm, fuzzy place walking away from this show?
Yeah. I think I mentioned this before earlier. Most people are moderate. Like, most people don't want to be political. Most people don't care about politics. They're very, like you said, tired and exhausted of the corporate virtue signaling and the woke nonsense we see on the news in every single corporation. I mean, I just did a reaction video to like a scene in Arthur where they're like, put on a mask, you did it. Like, everyone is tired of it.
Yes.
Everyone's sick of it.
Yes.
Most people, I literally walked into Target the other day in a blue area where I put my mask on like this because I was like, okay, if they say something, I'll pull it up. No one said a single thing to me. Everyone's just tired of everything. Everyone's exhausted, right? So I think to encourage everyone who feels very disenfranchised and very discouraged from feeling like all the cultural institutions have been just so taken over by the woke mob. Most everyday Americans aren't like that.
Yeah.
Most everyday Americans don't buy into that. So it really starts by serving, loving, and talking to your local community and your family, your friends, and convincing them, because change doesn't always happen at a macro level, which it does. That's why we fight in politics. But I think the most substantial change and the heart changing and heart transforming radical transformation that we want to see in our society starts in the home. Home first and foremost, right? And so that's why Jordan Peterson says before you even go out into the streets to protest for climate activism or BLM, right? He says to clean your room, get your house in check first, and then you go out and do that. Because once you have your home in check, once you love your immediate friends and family, and you're able to convince them of the good merits and message of conservatism and ultimately Jesus Christ, then that trickles down, right? That's why Jesus had 12 disciples. He didn't have 500 disciples. He had 12 disciples, right? And he focused and poured into those 12. And he created the most catastrophic, in a good way, and cataclysmic movement in history. One man with 12 disciples, right? Now Christianity has saved so many people's lives, transformed so many people's lives. One random dude from Galilee, right? Who's born, it's
not
just,
so random.
it's like crazy.
I mean, this
Yeah,
country would
but
not
like, yeah,
exist
he
without
was.
him.
Exactly. So I think when we look at Jesus and when we want to be like Christ, right? Ultimately, we always think about, it's always about fighting at the macro level. But, there are people who are going to fight that fight. But I think ultimately for everyone, don't be discouraged. You can win those small battles in your home, in your immediate communities. And from there, we can see substantial change happen, not only in this country, but in the world.
I like it, man. Boys, this is one of my favorite guests. I'm not gonna lie. I think he just took the title from Topher. Topher. This is gonna be tough.
Look at you, Mr. Instigator.
Hey, listen, I'm just saying. This is a good one, man. Tell our audience where they can follow you, where they can find you, where are you, and how can they get more into you, my friend.
Yeah. Also, everywhere my handle is the Kangmin Lee. So I guess my name is on the stream, but if you guys don't know how to spell my name, it's spelled Kingman, but you switch the vowels.
Okay.
So the Kangmin Lee. I'm mainly on Instagram, but I'm also on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. YouTube and Facebook, I'm known as the Korean Christian Conservative. But yeah, you can also find me TikTok and Gab and Parler, but I don't really use those as much. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Very cool.
Awesome.
We appreciate you so freaking much.
Thank you.
For being on the show. It was an awesome show, and I'm not being hyperbolic. I tend to be a little crazy, a little, over the top. But I really appreciate you for being on the show today. But he just played the Final Fantasy VII victory music for you, so you just dominated as usual. But man, I appreciate you so much for coming on today. And boys, what an amazing show.
Yeah, definitely.
What did you think?
That was great.
Yes, great interview. Great time. Great topics.
Dude,
That's what we're all about.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Guys.
Hey, thanks again for being on the show, man. We appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking us out today. Thank you for the bidding war that got us paid. Thank you so much. I mean, we don't ask for money, but we'll take it. And we appreciate you for doing that. And guys, we definitely got to have you back on the show. Kangmin, it was great. We enjoyed you. And hey, man, give him the outro, broski.
Well, we implore you, Kangmin, and the rest of the audience, become a member. Become a citizen of the Rube Empire. The taxes are voluntary, the people are free, and we serve up freshly roasted liberal logic every Wednesday at 9 p.m. right here on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Peace out.
Thanks, guys. See ya. We off? We safe?
Not yet.